Once again, today we're going to be talking about the COUNTIF and the COUNTIFs functions. So this is another one of the complex math functions. As you can see here, I have labeled both of them with how they are used. Here we can see that the COUNTIF is used with a range and a criteria, and then the COUNTIFs has a criteria range 1, criteria 1, and etc. That is because we will have multiple criterias that we will be able to use for this. And for the criterias, here I gave you guys again a little description of how to put what you're thinking basically into the text for Excel. Usually it will be an equal to, less than, more than, less than or equal to, or more than or equal to. And that is, I put there the ways that you need to type it. So okay, so for COUNTIF and COUNTIFs we have two examples. Okay, so we will have the COUNTIF example and the COUNTIFs example. Okay, the first example says use the COUNTIF function to calculate the number of students that have an income over 8,000. Okay, so what are we looking at? We're looking at the income of the students. So we will be looking at column M. Now we need the number of students that have an income over 8,000. So out of the criteria, we are looking at the more than. And we can see that we will be using that text. So we will start with our equal sign. Again, no spaces, and it does not matter whether it's capitalized or not. It gives us a quick description, a range and criteria. All we need is our range, meaning what are we looking at? Are we looking at the GPA? Are we looking at the major? Are we looking at the graduation year? So we're looking at the income, and we will not highlight the title as we have seen in other videos. We will just highlight the data that we need. We click comma. As you can see, Excel made a range instead of putting all of them individually. The criteria is we want to only count the cells that are above 8,000. So we will use the greater than and the value that we need. So if we type that, oh, and don't put any commas in this because it will mess up your formula. Sometimes Excel mistakes that as text, so it will not compute that. Okay, for this example, just imagine that there's an X here. As we learn in math, you know, the arrow points towards the smaller number, and the X is what we're working with. So in Excel, we will not need the X. You just have to know how it works. We just need this part, and it has to be within quotations. So we will close it and hit enter, and we get 5. So let's see if that checks out. We have above 8,000, so 8,000 wouldn't work here, right? So we have 9,000, that's 1, 10,000, 2, 12,000, 3, 15,000, 4, and 30,000, 5. So yes, that checks out. The formula worked just fine. As soon as you have it, you won't have to check whether it's right or not. As long as you didn't make any typo errors, everything should be fine. Okay, so for the COUNTIFs, now we will have more than one criteria that we will be able to use. So the second example says use the COUNTIFs function to calculate the number of students that have an income over 8,000 and have honor roll. So honor roll is what we covered in the last video. We used it with the IF function for students that have at least a 3.0 GPA. That was our criteria. The ones that passed it would be labeled with honor roll, and the ones that didn't would just have a blank for their cell. So we will be using these two combined, you could say. and we will click enter, equal sign, and we're looking at the income. So count ifs with the S now, because we want to include multiple criteria. And what we need is the range for the first criteria, the criteria for that range, and then we can put another range and the criteria for that range, and then so on and so forth. So you can put as many criteria as you want, and in the end, all of them have to be met in order for Excel to count it as one. So if you meet one of the criteria and you fail to meet the other one, then Excel will not count it. So this is like you telling Excel, you know what, I only want to see the amount of students that meet these 2, 3, or more criteria. And I don't care if they fail one of them, don't count them, right? Okay. So the first criteria we want is the income, just like we established with the previous one. We will select all of it. We will click comma. The criteria is the same as the other one. So we will start with our quotations, always with the quotations for criteria. And we will click on this one and then above 8,000. And comma, it takes us for the next criteria range. We could technically finish it like this. Count ifs will work just fine as if it was a count if. But, I mean, if you're going to use the ifs function, you will want to use more than one criteria. That's the point of it. So here we go to the next one, comma, and you can put a space or not sometimes. I recommend not putting any spaces. It might cause a typo error. So criteria range number 2. Now we're looking at this range, the honor roll range. So we will select the 10 students, the 10 rows, and our criteria will be that it has to be equal to, and we can put honor roll. We can type honor roll ourselves. And if we type it just exactly how these were written or typed, then Excel will recognize it. But what you will notice is that sometimes these, the ones that you have in your data, may have like a space afterwards, and that does mess up the count. So we will check to make sure that everything is right. So we only have 2. Okay, so the 8,000 doesn't check out. No, the 10,000. Okay, we have 1 right there. 12,000 doesn't check out. The 15,000 doesn't check out. The 30,000 does check out though. It does have the honor roll. So it is right. So you can either type it all through text like that, or technically what we have here is an equal to criteria. And as I've placed it over here, I've explained, you can either do a cell text or the value if it's like a number, or you can click on the cell that has that value that you want. So if it had been a number, we could also write the number if it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. We don't need quotations, I believe. But then we could also just select a cell that has what we want it to be equal to. So we can select one of these honor roll ones, and Excel will automatically know that you want only the ones that are equal to whatever is in that cell, which in this case it's honor roll. It's what we want. So we click enter and it still works just fine. So whenever you have an equal to criteria, you can either type it in text if it's letters, the value if it's a number, or you can just select a cell that has exactly what you want it to be equal to. So that's going to be it for this one. That COUNTIFs, it's very useful when you have multiple criteria that you want to meet, and that's just another example of how Excel can be used for many different applications. Whenever you have data of any sort, you can use these if functions, things that a normal calculator would never be able to tell you, and Excel will do it just fine, fairly quickly, and it doesn't take a lot of practice with these videos that I'm making. Hopefully you guys can master these skills. And if you guys have any questions over these if functions that I'm covering on these, then you're more than welcome to just ask it down in the comments below. And yeah, thank you for watching.